And we're recording. And we're back.
We're back with more unintelligible athletic
More of nothing.
More ridiculousness.
More of this.
I had some questions for Will in regards to strength and like the application of strength in relation to what our testing looks like.
Yeah. Because why test if you're not going to use it?
Yes. What's the point in having it?
Why test
apply it?
if it doesn't tell you anything?
Exactly.
So
like what does that look like in terms of application as an athlete? And then, we've talked about the testing and what the required results are, but how does that equal to like strong enough in your opinion?
Yeah. So it's probably one of the things that one of the ways that people often find me as a coach. So is because I think Dan John and Jim Vandler are two people that often refer to me and refer to strength standards in articles at different times over different periods of time. And the reason being, I think when most people think testing, they think about how high the result is. So that like as in testing something that you have to get better at all the time. And I don't think that's true. So I think if you're a power lifter or you're an Olympic lifter, then your testing is your competition. Mm-hmm. And other than that, other than sort of guiding you through training, you're sort of being guided through your 3 RMs or your 2 RMs or your 1 RMs. People have things that they can gauge their testing for. Most other people who are testing, so whether you're a fighter or you're a football player or you're a soccer player or you're a tennis player or whatever, the person with the best bench isn't the best athlete, or the person with the best squat isn't the best athlete. So for me, there's an appropriate amount of strength that you need to be successful in sport, and that's pretty much across the board. So if you can squat or deadlift twice your body weight, that's plenty. So if you can bench 1.5 times your body weight, that's heaps. If you can do 10 or 12 reps with your body weight, that's plenty of muscular strength, muscular endurance. If you can do 45, 50 push-ups in a minute, that's heaps of push-ups. That's good endurance. Yeah.
Quick question. So explain to us why, somebody who weighs 200 pounds, why they don't need to bench more than 300 pounds, or why they don't need to bench, their body weight more than 12 times. Yeah. Like let's say application of somebody like in a field sport, right? It's going to come down to some pretty basic physics, right? Where just unless you're laying on your back, pushing a bar off of you, you're never going to get to apply that force anyway.
Yeah, and
right? That's primarily what it comes down to.
That's basically the issue. So is it in any sport, same as you could look at things like people's 40-yard time, the amount of time that the frequency at which you get to run 40 yards flat out in a straight line from standing start is minimal. It gives you an idea, like gives people an indication of people's speed, acceleration. It's not a be all and end all. I don't think necessarily the person with the best 40 time becomes the best wide receiver, or you're not, doesn't, it only has so much application. So on the strength side of things, so if you're looking at sort of squat, deadlift and bench, if you look at those ones that to get continual progress above, say, 1.5 to 2 times body weight in any of those things, you're going to have to sacrifice something with regards to the sport that you're actually competitive in. So you would have to focus on, improving technically. You would have to be training in support of those testing, those testing activities. So you would have to build a program around your bench and a program around your squat, program around your deadlift as a power lifter would.
So are you saying to do something like that? So like to get to actually, not that you be too strong, but like the endeavor to get stronger than your strength standards is almost a detriment to your sport as opposed to a supplement.
Yeah, and it's a detriment to your physiology as well. So there's a cost that comes with that pursuit. Increased risk of injury. So everybody knows there's a curve. There's an increase in rate of injury that comes with frequency and volume. So the more you're training, the greater your risk of injury. The more volume and intensity that you're applying in it, the greater the risk of injury as well. So it comes at a cost. So what you're trying to do with your training, if you're a competitive athlete, at whatever level, is trying to optimize. For me, is trying to optimize your training. So how much training is enough to get the return that I'm looking for from my training, but how much training above and beyond that is going to come at a risk that is not worth the reward from that increase in strength. And the other thing is too, so Paddy, if you look at most fighters or most competitive athletes, they can come into the gym and test. I can improve their testing in 6 to 8 weeks without them actually getting stronger. And that sounds weird. So I can work on their technique and the way that they set up for the testing. I can work on their testing, on the actual testing technique. So how they bench is a classic example. So you can help people with their setup. We can improve their benching line. We can improve their hand widths to optimize their ability to bench. And I might get somebody from benching, 115 kilos to 130 kilos without changing their actual strength. So that's an issue as well. So, and that's not a good or a bad thing. That is just a thing. The same as I'm going to improve in my push-ups just from doing some push-ups. So I'll get my setup right. I'll be training for a month. I'll lose some weight. My strength might not change very much at all, but just the frequency of application to training, my stabilizing musculature is going to improve, and that'll help out. So for me, it's about finding a sweet spot as far as your testing results are concerned. And the biggest thing I look for actually is the balance between the tests. I think the way that each individual test relates to each other is more important than the actual result in any one test.
Okay.
Because it's the imbalance, it's your imbalance that leads to injury. So most people who get a shoulder injury in the gym, if they were testing, you would see it coming, because you see people who can bench 1.5 times their body weight, and we've talked about it before, and can do 5 inverted rows. So they're too predisposed to anterior horizontal pressing exercises, and they don't have enough stability in their shoulders. You'll see people who can't do a chin and have a poor inverted row score, and they'll get better at their inverted rows, and all of a sudden their chins go up. So they're not their lat strength and their bicep strength and their grip strength's not necessarily improved. What you've done is you've been able to apply your strength better by improving like another test, that inverted row test, that you improve your scap stability and control and your ability to apply your strength, and everything else gets better. So testing we need to look at as a whole, and that's where I'll go. Like at the moment, we're just doing some really basic testing.
Yeah.
Because testing more broadly is going to have a limited return because there's nowhere for us to apply it. So it's not really worthwhile me going and try and max out on a squat or a trap bar deadlift and bench, chin up, push up, inverted row. We know that it's going to look terrible, so we might as well.
Yeah, and what would we do with the data? Do you know?
Yeah,
what
are we going to do with the data? So we've got enough. So when it gets to the stage that I can do, pump out 30 of those kettlebell goblet squats in a minute, and I can do 30 or 40 push-ups in a minute, that'll be something to go and look at. So that push-up test is a good thing to talk about, because one of the things that you can look at, and I think that we'll need to discuss down the track, is standardizing that test. So you look at that push-up test. So if I had to do those push-ups, so if I had to get in position, arms extended, body nice and flat, the clock starts and I have to do as many push-ups as I can in 60 seconds without breaking form, without getting to my knees, et cetera, we would get a certain result, and maybe that is 10. If I wanted to go and do that test 10 minutes later, where I decided I could break form, or it was just a matter of how many push-ups I could do them 2 at a time.
Yeah.
Bang out 2, get on my knees, give my arms a shake, bang out another 2, give my arms a shake, bang out another 2, bang out 4. Last 15 seconds, I could do 6 or 7, and my score would be 15 or 16. It'd still be pathetic, but it would be more.
Yeah.
So you need that's the consistency. We talked about it in the last one too. It's the consistency of the testing that is important. So even if I look at doing 100 calories on the Echo, on the arm leg bike, you could gain that each time. So you start off, I'll do a 10-minute warm up, and then I'll go, okay, I'm going to set it for 100 calories and see how fast I can do it. Am I going to go flat out from the start, go as hard as I can and just try and hang on? Or do I go out at a pace that I think I can manage and ramp it up in the last 5 minutes? So different styles of testing are going to get me different scores. And we've talked about this with the IP testing. So there's plenty of places people can go back and look at that. Like I said, it's on, talk about it in other places. I'll put a link, as we said, I'll put a link to the testing in this, in the description of this podcast. But people used to know what my strength testing standards were, like in rugby, and guys would come in and knock off their testing in 5 or 6 minutes and go, because they know all they have to do. They come and warm up, do a mobility and stability warm up, do an opener on their squat or their deadlifts, hit their testing target, go and do the same thing on the bench, do their chin ups, do their push ups, take a break for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and do their inverted rows, because they know that they're hitting. All they have to do is do 45 push ups in a minute, do 30 inverted rows in a minute, and they're done. And their testing's gone. But for other people, that testing, would take, to get a decent score, or maybe not even to make the benchmarks, might take them an hour to work
and then you
through.
had people who were coming in and who were attempting to destroy the testing, to hit as many as possible. Like people coming in trying to trap our deadlift triple body weight to kind of look. This is how high I am on the testing score.
Yes, and they could spend 2 hours doing it. Breaking it down, work up, get themselves psyched up for their. And the thing is too, like I said, I don't want to lose anybody to injury on doing their testing. That's idiotic, but people do that. So people, tear pecs and damage triceps and, blow their hips out or damage their backs trying to do a triple body weight trap bar deadlift. It's crazy. So show me that you're strong enough. Show me that you're strong enough. Show me that you've got some good endurance. Show me everything's in balance, and then go out and spend more time playing your sport.
I feel like that should be the name of your academy. Strong enough.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. And you'll see athletes who perform at a really high level who people think are lazy. So they're not lazy. They're protecting themselves from bad programming and bad coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So because they don't need. If you're an elite athlete, you do not need to be. You need to be elite at your sport. You don't need to be elite at your testing.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you talked about before. I think it was like 1 or 2 podcasts ago, that a lot of the training we do now comes from like bodybuilding or powerlifting, which are sports that people don't compete in. And like, that's what almost like the testing kind of comes, like we're doing a trap bar deadlift, we're doing a bench press and stuff like that, whereas like they're not as applicable to our sport as they would be to powerlifting or something.
Well, same as body fat. People in elite sport became obsessed with body fat levels. So in that the lower your body fat was, the fitter you are. Like the thing is that there's a healthy body fat range to be in, and below that, when you lose your body fat, you're losing it from everywhere at a set ratio, and in the end, you're losing it from your 15 to 30%. You're losing it. Anything below 50% is optimal for me. No, that you're losing it from your synovial fluid. So people find as their body fat decreases, they'll get a greater onset of tendonitis. They'll start getting issues with their knees and their shoulders and their back and their hips. There's a set level, and some people can carry a lower body fat level. Like everything else, is genetic. Some people are more predisposed to being having or sustaining a really low body fat level, and some people aren't. So you need to find out what's the optimal level for you. And so, same for fighters. For fighters, it's about winning. Like we know, it's about. I'm not saying anything controversial. It's about winning fights. One of the things I was going to draw your attention to today, like Louis Simmons from Westside Barbell, is doing, is being held up as a grappling Westside for MMA, and they're selling it. And I mean, I never met Louis. I know a lot of other guys that have come out of Westside, and they for a while they dominated powerlifting. People bringing their backgrounds into sport is dangerous. MMA and fighting is even boxing. Strength and conditioning for boxing and MMA is really in its infancy. So and people are bringing their, you'll see powerlifting coaches coming into MMA. I think some of the guys that are proponents of Westside are guys that have blown discs and done shoulders, and their strength and conditioning basically diminished, and in some cases ended their MMA careers.
Yeah.
Because
if you look at like Cain Velasquez, and I'm not sure who was doing his training and conditioning, but you can see some of the stuff that he was doing online in terms of like the kettlebell swings he was doing and the leg extensions. You could see like the shearing taking place in his knees and his back. And now his MMA career was cut short, like probably 5 to 10 years, because of his I think we've said it before, a lot of these fighters are successful in spite of their strength and conditioning, not because
100%. So it's I see some stuff, and it's crazy, and I'll probably it's probably one of those things people won't listen to me until I am back under 100 kilos and looking like
the Adonis that you were.
Yeah, look, well, no, and it's true. People People don't want to listen to it. I'll put, the proof will be in the pudding. So I'll do what I have to do to get myself.
Pudding. Did you get exciting when?
Yeah, I was
when
just
you
thinking that's what
pudding?
that's what I'll do when I'm finished, eat some pudding. But it's something we can talk about more and explore strength and conditioning in MMA. Because the thing is that I'm not saying there's one perfect answer, and the reason I say that is because there's not one standard type of athlete. So in every single weight class, there are athletes who bring really different physical attributes to that weight class. So you'll have guys, guys at middleweight who are spark plugs. They 5'8", 5'9", and they're Hector Lombards of the sport who are just completely jacked. And then you'll get other guys who are long and lean, 6'3", 6'4", 6'6", and making 84 kilos. They've got really different body types, and those really different body types need really different things from their training. And then you have to think about what attributes you bring to it. So there are people who are explosive by nature.
Yes.
Some people are endurance athletes, lots of different ways to win a fight. So, people say, oh, why didn't you fight in the first round like you did in the last round? And I'd be like, that's exactly the problem. Like, I was, the other person started up here and ended up down here. I was like this all the way through because I'm not explosive by nature. I'm not an explosive athlete. So I have good endurance. Not super strong, not predisposed to it, but had good muscular endurance, and I could fight. I could fight the same way throughout a fight. And the other person starts up off here, and you end up outlasting them because their performance ends up down here. Because if they don't knock you out in the first 30 seconds, it's like getting hit with a pillow by the end of the first round. That people are going, how did you take those punches? And the reason that you could take them is because there was absolutely nothing in them. So you have to look not only at people's physical, their physiology, how they're made up, but you have to look at how they're predisposed, what they're predisposed to as an athlete. So, and that's where the testing comes in. So you're looking to, people spend too much time working on their weaknesses. I'm never going to be a power athlete.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was never ever going to happen. So what I need to do is maximize what what I'm predisposed to, working on good muscular endurance, good cardio, as people would say, and then minimize the impact of my weakness, which is not being incredibly powerful, not being incredibly explosive. And the other thing is too, so there's three things in fighting. So we've looked at what your characteristics are physiologically. Are you long and lean? Are you short and stout and explosive? What your general physical makeup is, what your predisposition is. So are you an explosive athlete? Are you an endurance athlete? Are you somewhere in between? And the other thing that you have to look at is training for your style of fighting. So, and people don't realize this either. So the boxing's primarily an open kinetic sport. So that the activities have no fixed point other than the body. Grappling is 100% the opposite. It's a closed kinetic sport where you're connected to you're connected to that other athlete. That takes a completely different physiological capacity to apply. So, and the thing with fighting is that you have to be prepared for both. So, the whole idea about game planning is, taking people out of their comfort zone. If they're grapplers, you draw them into, an open kinetic activity. So you keep your distance and make them fight on your terms rather than entering into what they're physically predisposed to. So you have to be able to train for that as well. So I think the the training for MMA thing is something we could, or any martial arts we could talk about for a long time. Because if you want to be outstanding judoka versus karate fighter or a Muay Thai fighter, they're very different training programs, very different pathways that you need to follow to be able to excel. And my expectations as a strength athlete, there were very different things that I work on in the programming. So it's something we could explore in detail to talk about. Because again, like with the other things I discuss, I'd be happy to have that conversation with any strength and conditioning coach, because you can have a logical conversation about it. If people don't understand that, they shouldn't be coaching in the first place.
Daniel.
Okay, so fascinating stuff. We're getting into pretty high level stuff also. And again, just a reminder for most people who, like, we saw what Will just did, 12 push-ups in a minute. Okay, now we're talking about like actually training athletes. Okay, so there's this huge gamut in between there, right?
Yes.
And it can be, this is where people get overwhelmed with all the information that's out there, right? So first of all, a lot of it's bullshit, a lot of it's total bullshit, right? And then there's what Will's talking about, which is actual application, what specific training people need for a specific sport. And most people that we're going to be, we're assuming are going to be watching this, are somewhere in between. They're somewhere in the middle, right? Patty, there's somebody in your house.
She lives here. It's fine.
So don't get overwhelmed ever. Always ask questions. And so, Patty, does that basically answer the question you're asking?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like on testing, Will was talking about, do I always hold strict form and as many as I can do in a minute with, not going into my knees and whatnot, or do we allow people to kind of game the test?
Yep.
And a point about that is the testing part is fun. It's fun if you're doing it by yourself, because ultimately we're all in competition with ourselves. It's fun in a group environment. It's really fun for all the guys or the girls and the guys and the girls to test together. That's a lot of fun. But I think I alluded to this at one point previously. It's like part of getting better at testing is actual physiological improvement.
Yep.
And part of it is getting better at the testing.
Yep.
But you can only get better at the testing, like you can climb up that curve and then you're there, right? I mean, once you're the guy who can do 30 or 40 or 50 push-ups in a minute, you're now down to the point where you have less rest time than you have movement time. Yeah. So you as you get more efficient, there's less efficiency gains to be had. That's with any system, right? So don't worry about that. Figure out the best way for you to get the most push-ups in a minute. And if that's a different way next time, that's fine. It doesn't matter, because pretty soon you're going to figure it out, and it's just going to be you against the clock. And did your training help you improve or not? And that won't take that long. And if you're testing once a month, you'll figure that out in 6 months or a year.
And I think the other benefit is, so 2 points on what you're saying. One is that pick appropriate testing for your level. So I have, as hard as it will be to believe, I have been an elite athlete and did tested at an elite level. Those tests are not appropriate for the level that I'm at now. So the tests that are appropriate for me now is to do some push-ups, do some kettlebell, goblet squats, and have a look at what progress I make around that. And the other thing is too, this is the benefit of recording it, because the thing is, we know what it is when we see it. So if I could give you 2 different testing results, one being 8 and the other being double that at 16, and I could do those tests 10 minutes apart. So I could get into position and see how many push-ups I can do to failure in a minute. holding strict form without any rest, I could take a 10 and get 8 or 10. And then I could wait 10 minutes or 6. And then I could wait 10 minutes and go, okay, well, I know how bad it is. So I could do 2, take a break, do 2, and then try and, aim to get out as many as I could at the end. But if we record it and have a look at it, we know what it is when we see it. So,
so that's adding the qualitative component to just the simple quantitative number.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons that I say, and it is good, like especially if you're training at home. Like we've all seen people recording in the gym, and people will have their comments about that. But recording your sessions at home, if you have the capacity to do that, not even to like to post it, to be able to, what I'm looking to do, I'm going to post it for accountability's sake, but for me, what I'm looking to get out of it is to be able to have a look back in 3 months' time and have a look how bad it was to where it hopefully is, and to be able to measure those things side by side. So I'll hopefully look physiologically different. I'll be able to perform in a different manner and be able to see that. But for you guys, you'll be able to see the difference in the push-ups and the difference in the kettlebell. The quality of the reps will look different, obviously, as well as the scores being different. So it's about making sure that you're testing appropriately. You're having some way to measure it. So for me, even recording your training sessions, that's a test. The amount of rest that I need between sets, amount of rest I need between exercises, that'll be something we see down the track. So like the workout I did yesterday, that'll be a good thing to do in 3 months' time and see how fast I can motor through it. Instead of it taking me 40 minutes to get through, then I smash out the test on the bike, get off the bike, grab the kettlebells, do 12 RDLs. I do 5 presses each side, do 12 rows each side, do the 3 sets as fast as I can from start to finish. Because yesterday I needed recovery just to have a breather, just to get through it. I'll be able to record that and see what that session looks like in 3 months or 6 months.
And I think it's interesting that you said, like, you need to figure out what kind of testing you need, because like people who don't know what they're doing don't know what kind of testing they need. I think that's what they need this kind of thing for, is like to be able to find out what they need and where they're at, as opposed to trying to mess around with themselves.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of where I was going with Will getting into a little more the detail of the difference between what somebody who's training jits needs versus somebody who's doing striking, whatever, is 95% of the people watching this video need to do push-ups, inverted rows, pull-ups, a bench press, and a max effort or trap bar deadlift, right? Like
if they're at the gym, this is the thing I think will break it down over time. If you're at home, what equipment have you got? What's a good way to sort of standardize your testing at home? So push-ups are a good. So my push-ups going to improve as my weight goes down. Just because the loading's going to change. So push-up, I've got the kettlebell. That kettlebell's always going to weigh 1 pood, always going to weigh 16 kilos. I did 12 reps. Next time I do 18, and 6 months down the track, I can, do, a rep a second, maybe in a year's time. Because it is quite light. As my mobility improves, as I do more reps, you'll become more comfortable with it. Same with the push-ups. It's enough of a test at the moment just to have that benchmark to see what's going on with my training and where I'm at. So, and if you're at the gym, do the same thing. If you have a trap bar, use a trap bar. If you have a straight bar, do that. If you want to do a body weight exercise, it could be an air squat. Just do it the same way each time. You can do bench. You can do your chin-ups. Just make sure you're doing the same way. each time. So you have you're measuring and comparing like for like.
So slight change of subject. So like you mentioned, you might go in 3 months, go back and do the same session. So how are you recording your sessions? Because we've talked a lot offline, and one of the ways I think Will and I for sure, connected the first time was through training or recording.
Yep.
Through recording or training. I do that all the time. You'll get used to it. And then feedback, whether it's jokingly or constructive or critical or whatever. And this is going to be really important going forward as people are training at home, literally in isolation, in a vacuum, and needing that feedback. So I train. I've always done it by paper, even when I've also done things online with the online training journal. I've also done it on paper first. So Will, what are you using?
Yeah. So at the moment, I'm just going to record it. I'll write it out on my own website. So I have a training log section there. So I'll record it. I'll record it there. So I'll record sort of what I'm doing each session. We're going to have a look at different sort of training diaries going forward. But I'm going to write down what I do each session, and I'm going to record it with the GoPro. So just for the sake of accountability. So I'll train again today, and I'll record it. I'm going to do the opposite of, not the opposite, I'm going to do the antagonistic exercises from yesterday's session. So I'll do I'll do some like potato sack squats. I'll do some push-ups. I need to find some way to do some sort of vertical pulling exercise. Like your example, maybe I'll get some bands. It's probably a good way for me to start. Just with some, because I could do some bent over band rows, which will be a vertical pulling exercise. So,
Patty, how do you? How do you how do you record your training? So just want to say, like, real quick, we got 2 minutes left.
I don't. I never record my training anymore. I haven't recorded my training in probably 10 years since I stopped fighting. So I literally just I know. I hit my max. I hit what I can hit for 5 reps. And when I was lifting like IP style, I would rotate like through back and forth, so I kind of know where my max is for where I need to be strength wise, and then I would ramp up and down like on 4 week periods.
Well, I'm going to ask you to start recording your training so other people can see
what you're doing,
what you do. I know. I mean, I think it'd be, well, I mean, I want to see it. I need something to make. I need to find some flaw in you. Okay.
Yes.
But right. I just want to, like, we talked, we got a minute left. We talked offline real quick about us being the 3 bears, how Will's doing no training, Patty's doing all the training, and how I'm just perfect. So I want to see your training, bro.
Yeah. All right, bro. I'll start recording my training.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's saying less than a minute. It could stop any second now, but I feel like we've sucked people into this. That they got through this whole thing after me promising to show how horrific my training was in the last one.
Oh, yeah.
They'll have to wait until next time. So we'll do that in the next episode.
Dan and I's testing will be on the next episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about it then.
I'm going to test tomorrow. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, you test tomorrow, and that'll give us something to talk about next time. So we want a goblet squat with one pood and your push-ups.
Push-ups in a minute.
I'm gonna do
inverted rows also.
Yeah, well,
I'll do inverted rows and pull-ups too. I'll do that.
Okay.
Inverted rows. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Peace out, guys. Good work.